now completed on the partial divestment, taking our holding in Zenit mining operations down to 9.9%. That yields cash of $19.5 million, which we have received in Turkey.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Kerim Sener. He is Managing Director of Ariana Resources. Kerim, very good to speak with you. You're receiving $19.5 million from the Zenit divestment, and that gives you £29 million in cash, no debt. How does that change what you're able to do at Dokwe, and why was now the right time to sell?
Oh, hi, Stephen. Yeah, really good to join you. Yes, this is a very significant transaction for the company. We've now completed on the partial divestment, taking our holding in Zenit mining operations down to 9.9%. That yields cash of $19.5 million, which we have received in Turkey. So you mentioned £29 million, but that figure actually includes the value of the remaining interest, so the 9.9 based on the transaction value, plus the existing cash that we already have, in particular through the ASX listing and the completion of the agreement that we undertook with Xinhai Mining in association with the development of the Dokwe project through feasibility.
Drilling's confirmed mineralisation extending at least 150 meters beyond Dokwe North's current resource envelope, still open along strike. What does that tell you about the true scale of what you have there?
Yeah, so we have reported on all of the drilling results. It was RC drilling that we'd completed in the Dokwe project, both at Dokwe North, Dokwe Central area, and an area to the northeast of Dokwe North. And most significantly, some of the results that we've been seeing coming out of the northeastern extension of Dokwe North are highly significant. In particular, we'd reported previously the results of DRC 25. So that was 4 meters at almost 17 grams per ton, demonstrating the continuity of the high grade components of the shear zone cutting through the Dokwe North system. This was then followed up with additional drilling further to the northeast. So we stepped out a further 50 meters and then a further 50 meters beyond that. And we announced those results most recently, demonstrating that we do have mineralization continuing in that direction. So this bodes really well because it represents material that is most easily accessed. So it's the closest to surface. And it's currently entirely outside of the resource envelope that we've already identified for the purposes of the resource and indeed the work that we're doing towards the pre-feasibility study update. So there's a sizable volume of potential mineralized material that may make its way into a further resource update later on this year. One of the things that we do want to do, though, in the meantime, is follow up with some diamond drilling and really understand what's going on in that northeastern section of the Dokwe North deposit. We also identified a number of other areas at Dokwe Central and at Sinkwe that demonstrate continuity of mineralization along strike. And again, these are areas that we need to follow up with some further work.
You mentioned diamond drilling for feasibility test work. Can you walk investors through the key milestones between here and a completed feasibility study?
Yeah, so we completed an agreement with Xinhai Mining in relation to a metallurgical sampling and test work program that included over 2,000 meters of diamond drilling. Most of that drilling is focused on Dokwe North, but we also have one hole that's planned at Dokwe Central to yield material for metallurgical test work purposes. We're actually progressing really well with that program. We've got 2 Xinhai operated rigs on site that are operating extremely well. The team's been doing a great job. As soon as we've secured the sample material from that diamond drilling program, we'll be shipping that material to Yantai in China for metallurgical test work. So they've got a fantastic test work facility there that will see us through the early stages of the metallurgical test work program, with supporting work being undertaken through IMO laboratories here in Perth.
You described Dokwe as potentially company making and say it's attracting significant industry interest. Can you give investors a sense of what that interest looks like?
Yeah, so obviously it attracted Shanghai in the first instance, and very quickly we were able to accelerate an agreement with them that we completed at the very end of last year. That involved an investment into Ariana of 8 million Australian dollars that was completed through an issue of CDIs here on the ASX. In addition to that, the metallurgical test work, sampling and test work program that I mentioned earlier, $1 million of CDIs will be issued in relation to that. And then a further $2 million worth of CDIs on completion of the feasibility study program that we're working with Shanghai. So that's certainly one area where we've seen significant industry interest, but also more locally in Zimbabwe. We've had approaches from power operators because one of the things that we're looking at is to ultimately develop a solar hybrid battery solution for the power requirements for the Dokwe processing plant and other infrastructure, and we're integrating that into the feasibility study program. But also, in terms of the finance aspects for Dockway, we've got interest coming in from regional banks, and that's something that we'll continue to progress as we work through the feasibility program and we understand exactly what our financial requirements are to bring Dockway into production.
You're keeping a 9.9% stake in Zenit as it prepares for a Turkish public listing. How much further value could that remaining holding unlock for Ariana shareholders?
Yeah, so we've retained that 9.9% interest for a reason. We believe that Zenit represents additional upside. Obviously, we brought the Tavşan operation on stream late last year. That's still in ramp up at the moment, but through the course of this year, we'll see that eventually operating at steady state. The Zenit's expecting production of about 25,000 ounces per annum out of that operation once it's achieved steady state production. And as Zenit progresses towards a listing on the Istanbul Stock Exchange, and a fair amount of work's already gone into that process. But perhaps later this year, that will eventuate, and we'll start to see proper value being ascribed to the Zenit operations on that local exchange.
Kerim, I hope you'll continue to keep us updated with your progress. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Pleasure.
Kerim Sener, Managing Director of Ariana Resources.